Ambassador Timothy Holt adjusted his collar, feeling the weight of his role pressing down with every step toward the alien assembly hall. The vast metallic structure of Vuroth gleamed in the alien twilight, a testament to the technological dominance of the Galactic Empire. Today, however, that dominance would be tempered, he hoped, by diplomacy. Timothy had been through countless negotiations across the galaxy, but the Empire had always stood out for its disdain of humanity. He was keenly aware of the thin line between peace and annihilation on which he now tread. As he approached, an Imperial escort led him into the main chamber, an immense space lined with dark metal and alien symbols etched in glimmering patterns. His escort, silent and stone-faced, gestured him toward a platform where the supreme envoy, Ithelix, awaited. Tall and clad in dark robes that shimmered with a faint energy, Ithelix projected a presence that was both mesmerizing and menacing. "Ambassador Holt," Ithelix's voice echoed through the hall, cold and formal. "The Galactic Empire welcomes your efforts." The emphasis on efforts wasn't lost on Timothy, but he kept his expression neutral. "The Human Alliance is grateful for the opportunity to forge a path forward, Envoy Ithelix," he replied, choosing his words carefully. "It is time we work together to ensure a future without bloodshed." Ithelix's thin lips curved into what could have been a smile, though it held no warmth. "Indeed, it is time that our differences are resolved once and for all." Timothy could feel the intensity of the Empire's representatives around him, rigid, glaring, silent witnesses to what they likely considered an unnecessary formality. Despite his experience, he felt a chill snake down his spine. Something about this felt wrong. They launched into formal discussions, and the diplomatic dance began. Timothy presented humanity's vision of mutual respect and cooperation, aware of the skepticism radiating from Ithelix and his aides. Still, he pressed on, detailing the benefits of a shared galaxy, appealing to reason, to prosperity, to peace. For a moment, Ithelix seemed to listen, his expression softening, though his gaze remained coldly analytical. Fascinating words, Ambassador. Truly noble. Just as Timothy felt a flicker of hope, Ithelix's tone shifted, hardening. "But you misunderstand us, Ambassador Holt. The Empire does not negotiate from a place of fear or need. Humanity is not our equal. You are tolerated, not embraced." Timothy's heart pounded, the foreboding now a siren in his mind. "Surely the Empire recognizes the strength of alliance," he argued, a tremor entering his voice despite himself. "We have much to offer. Your presence here, Ambassador, is a courtesy," Ithelix continued, his voice dropping to a hiss. "An opportunity to witness your last mistake." Before Timothy could respond, he heard the echoing footsteps of guards marching into the hall, their black armor reflecting the sterile light. They surrounded him, their faces hidden beneath sleek, opaque visors. "What is the meaning of this?" Timothy demanded, though his voice faltered. Ithelix looked at him with something close to pity. "Your kind clings to peace talks, to diplomacy, as though it holds any true power. This is the truth, Ambassador Holt. Humanity is fragile, a species overreaching its place in the stars. You were summoned here not for negotiation, but for your execution, a message to the Alliance." Timothy's heart sank as he looked around, searching for any sign of mercy or reason in the alien faces surrounding him. "Please, you don't have to do this," he said, voice hoarse. "This will bring nothing but war. War is the Empire's natural state, Ambassador. Your kind's existence disrupts that order. Today, it ends." Ithelix raised his hand, and with a chilling finality, he nodded to the guards. They stepped forward, weapons drawn, and without hesitation, executed the helpless diplomat. His body crumpled to the ground, and a thick silence filled the hall, broken only by Ithelix's murmured words. "Transmit this image to the Human Alliance. Let them know the cost of defiance." Meanwhile, on Earth, Admiral John Harker stared at the screen in horror as the transmission ended. The figure of his old friend, Timothy Holt, lying lifeless on the cold, foreign floor, filled him with a rage he hadn't felt in years. He clenched his fists, his jaw taut as he felt every ounce of the betrayal surge through him. He'd trusted the Empire's words, had advocated for this peace summit, believing, if foolishly, that the Empire might be willing to change. "No more," he muttered, voice barely above a whisper. "No more tolerance. No more waiting." Behind him, the command room buzzed with silence as officers watched their leader. Seeing the shift in his demeanor as his resolve hardened, Harker turned to his team, eyes blazing with fury. "Get the council together. We have a message to send back." He looked at the screen once more, a final moment of silent tribute to his fallen friend. "The Empire wants war? Then we'll bring them one they'll never forget." The transmission ended, but the memory of that image remained seared in his mind, a vivid reminder of the price they'd paid, and the greater price they'd soon demand in return. Admiral John Harker stood at the center of the Human Alliance's War Council chamber, his gaze steady but dark, holding back the simmering fury that threatened to spill over. The image of his friend Ambassador Timothy Holt, lying dead on that alien floor, replayed in his mind, a burning wound etched into his memory. Around him, the chamber buzzed with tension as his fellow commanders, representatives, and defense ministers took their seats, their faces drawn with shock and outrage. Timothy's brutal assassination had shaken them all. For Harker, it was not only a loss of a friend but a call to arms. The room fell silent as the last council member settled in, their faces reflecting the mixture of horror and anger they all shared. Harker cleared his throat, allowing a moment to let the silence settle before speaking. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have been left with no choice," he began, his voice firm, every word laced with conviction. "Ambassador Holt was sent in peace. He was one of our finest, an advocate for diplomacy, for reason, and for his efforts. The Empire offered nothing but betrayal and murder." A murmur of agreement rippled through the council, though the undertone was more than agreement. It was anger, barely restrained. Some of these leaders had been skeptical of the Empire from the beginning, and now their worst fears had been confirmed. One of the council members, Commander Elias Branston, leaned forward, his face hard. "Admiral, I don't need to tell you that we have no precedent for war on this scale. The Empire's forces are more advanced than ours, and their resources nearly limitless. If we declare war, we risk annihilation." Harker's eyes met Branston's, unwavering. "Commander, I understand the risks. I have reviewed every possible outcome, every potential consequence. But the alternative is to continue appeasing a regime that sees humanity as vermin. If they are willing to kill a diplomat, then no human life is safe. We cannot let fear dictate our response." Across the table, Defense Minister Anton Reeve, an older man with a history of caution, spoke up, his tone measured but resolute. "They have given us an ultimatum, Admiral: submit or be destroyed. Our only answer is to resist, to fight for our survival, or we will watch our people live as slaves, or worse." Harker nodded, relieved to have Reeve's support. He glanced around the room, letting his gaze fall on each face in turn. He knew these men and women well. They were seasoned leaders, battle-hardened and pragmatic. Yet, beneath the surface, he could sense their uncertainty. "Some of you may think this is madness," Harker continued, his voice rising slightly. "Perhaps it is. But history has shown us that peace achieved through submission is no peace at all. The Empire does not negotiate. They dominate. They see humanity as a threat to their rule, and for that, they will not rest until we are broken, scattered, and enslaved." He could see the resolve strengthening in their faces, some of them nodding as his words resonated. Still, others held back, visibly torn, fearing the consequences of an all-out war with an opponent so powerful. Before any objections could arise, Harker pressed on, his voice steady, unwavering. "We have built alliances, forged relationships with other species who are equally oppressed by the Empire. This is not just a war for our own survival. It is a war to end the tyranny that has plagued this galaxy for centuries. If we unite, we have a chance to create a new future, one where humanity and our allies stand as equals." For a moment, Silence fell over the room, heavy and thick with the weight of the decision before them. Each of them knew the gravity of this choice, the lives that would be lost, the worlds that would be forever changed. Harker felt his heartbeat echo in the stillness, a quiet but resolute drumbeat pushing him forward. Finally, Branston broke the silence, his voice low but resolute. "If we go to war, Admiral, we'll be waging it not just for humanity, but for every species the Empire has oppressed. We will have to prepare our people for a fight the likes of which we have never seen." Harker nodded. "Then we will prepare them. I'll see to it personally." He turned toward his communications officer, standing at attention near the wall. "Transmit this message across the system," Harker ordered, his voice filled with a calm determination. "Let every colony, every ally, every member of the Alliance know. We are at war." The officer nodded, his face set with the same grim resolve that Harker felt burning inside him, and moved to carry out the order. As the council members began to stand, their murmurs carrying a sense of finality, Harker felt a hand on his shoulder. He turned to see Defense Minister Reeve, his eyes somber but resolute. "You understand, Admiral, that this war will cost us more than we can imagine," Reeve said quietly. "You've made the right call, but it may be the last choice we have left." Harker held his gaze unflinching. "Then so be it, Minister. I'd rather face annihilation fighting for our freedom than live under the Empire's shadow." With a final nod, Reeve released his shoulder, stepping back to join the other council members, who were already filing out. Harker watched them go, his heart heavy but resolute, knowing that the declaration they had made today would alter the course of humanity forever. As he turned toward the comm station, he allowed himself one last thought of Timothy. They took one of our best, he thought, his fist clenching. Now, they'll see what it means to awaken a united humanity. And with that, Admiral Harker took his place at the center of the command, ready to lead his people into a war that would define their future. Admiral John Harker watched the display screen as his elite strike force, codenamed Delta Team, prepare to deploy on their first mission since the declaration of war. The target was Station Zeta, a critical Empire outpost on the fringe of their territory, armed to the teeth and guarded by a battalion of alien soldiers. Capturing this station would give humanity a foothold and strike the Empire where it hurt. Harker took a deep breath, mentally rehearsing the plan as he keyed into the comms to address the team. "Delta Team, you know what's at stake here. Station Zeta is one of the Empire's main supply hubs. If we take it, we cut off their fuel supply in this sector. The Empire thinks we're weak, that we're divided. Let's show them what it means to underestimate humanity." Commander Alex Grant's voice crackled over the channel. "Understood, Admiral. We'll make it quick." Harker nodded, his faith in Grant unwavering. Grant was one of the best soldiers in the Alliance, a combat-hardened veteran with a reputation for ruthless efficiency and a personal vendetta against the Empire. He'd lost his entire family to one of their purges years ago, and his resolve was steeled with a vengeance. The strike team prepared to launch. Harker's gaze shifted to Lieutenant David Sinclair, the team's tech specialist, standing beside Grant, his fingers anxiously flexing over his console. Fresh out of advanced training, Sinclair was eager to prove himself, and his skills with alien tech made him invaluable. The entire crew was a mixture of hardened veterans and young talent, united by the common purpose of vengeance and survival. "Stay sharp, Sinclair," Grant muttered, noticing the young man's tense expression. "We'll be in and out before you know it. Just stick to the plan." The lights dimmed in the dropship as it made its final approach, slipping past the Empire's perimeter sensors cloaked in the darkness of space. Station Zeta loomed ahead, a cold, angular monolith dotted with eerie green lights and armored by layers of alien metal. As they neared, the dropship's engines silenced to avoid detection, and the team braced for impact. Within moments, the ship docked and the hatch hissed open. Delta Team moved in swift, calculated steps, securing the entryway before dispersing through the dimly lit corridors of the Empire Station. The atmosphere was tense, each team member's movements synchronized and silent. Sinclair, locate the control room and override their security systems, Grant ordered. We need full access to the station's grid. Sinclair nodded, his fingers flying over his console as he hacked into the Empire's encrypted systems. Almost there, he whispered, a hint of excitement edging his voice. I've got it. Control room's 3 levels down, east wing. I'll disable internal sensors as we move. Grant's team moved quickly, clearing each corridor with precision, taking out alien guards with silent strikes. They worked with deadly efficiency, advancing deeper into the heart of the station. For a moment, it seemed as though the mission would go off without a hitch. But just as they reached the control room, a high-pitched alarm blared through the station, casting red emergency lights along the walls. Sinclair's face paled as he checked his console. I don't know how, but they've detected us. Reinforcements are on the way. Then we don't have time to be subtle, Grant replied, pulling his pulse rifle from his shoulder. Everyone ready up. We hold this position until we've secured the intel. The hall filled with the sound of heavy boots as the Empire's guards stormed toward them. A fierce firefight erupted, energy rounds flashing through the air as Delta Team took cover behind the metal consoles. Alien soldiers poured into the room, their armor gleaming under the red lights as they fired relentlessly. Harker monitored the battle from his command station, tension knotting his stomach as he watched Grant's team fight to hold their ground. He clenched his fists, willing them to succeed, knowing this mission was their only shot at a decisive first strike. Back on the station, Sinclair focused on downloading the encrypted data from the Empire systems. His hands shook, sweat trickling down his brow as he worked furiously, the sounds of battle echoing around him. Just a few more seconds. I almost have it, he shouted, ducking as a blast scorched the console beside him. Make it quick, Sinclair, Grant yelled, firing into the oncoming wave of soldiers. Finally, Sinclair's console beeped. Got it, he shouted, pulling the drive from the system. Grant nodded. All units, pull back to extraction point. Now! They moved as a unit, fighting their way back down the corridors as alien reinforcements continued to swarm the station. The atmosphere grew thick with smoke and the sharp tang of burning metal as Delta Team cut a path through the onslaught. As they neared the extraction point, a final group of alien soldiers blocked their way, their weapons raised in deadly precision. Grant stepped forward, a fierce determination lighting his eyes. Sinclair, get to the ship. I'll hold them here. Sir, Go, Grant ordered, raising his rifle and charging forward, drawing the enemy's fire as the rest of the team scrambled to the ship. Sinclair and the others leapt aboard just as Grant fell back, sprinting through the closing doors with a deep, heaving breath. The dropship detached, speeding away from the station as Grant collapsed onto the deck, exhaustion in his every movement. Harker's voice crackled over the comm, filled with the grim satisfaction of victory. Delta Team, you've done it. That data you retrieved, it's a blueprint for the Empire's next offensive. This war just turned in our favor. Grant looked at his team, bruised and weary but alive, a faint, weary smile breaking through his grim expression. We're just getting started, Admiral, he replied. In the silence that followed, the team felt the weight of what they'd accomplished. It was a small victory in the vastness of war, but it was theirs. And it was only the beginning. Admiral John Harker surveyed the holographic map flickering before him, his mind racing as he assessed the movements of both the Human Alliance forces and the Empire's fleets. Delta Team's successful raid on Station Zeta had given them access to crucial intel, details of the Empire's strategies, weak points in their defenses, and the locations of key outposts across their sector. This knowledge had given humanity a fighting chance. Now, it was time to exploit that advantage. Beside him, Commander Alex, Grant studied the hologram with grim focus. The recent victory had invigorated his spirit, but he understood that they had only scratched the surface. This war would demand more, and he was ready to give it. The faces of his team came to mind. Sinclair, Reeves, Dalton, all soldiers who had fought, bled, and survived by his side. Every successful strike only fueled their resolve. And now the Alliance was poised to strike the Empire where it would hurt most. "Admiral, it's time we use this intel to push forward," Grant said, his voice steady but intense. "We've been on the defensive long enough. We have the coordinates for the Empire's forward command center. If we can take that, we'll sever their coordination across the entire quadrant." Harker's eyes narrowed, his mind whirling through the possibilities. "A bold move, Commander. The Empire's center will be heavily fortified. They won't let us get close without a fight." Grant nodded, a fierce glint in his eye. "That's why we'll strike from two fronts. We use a decoy fleet to draw their attention away from the command center. When their forces are diverted, we hit them with everything we've got." Harker considered the plan, a faint smile of approval playing on his lips. Risky, but it could work. The Empire relies on their command structure, on absolute control. If we disrupt that, they'll falter. At that moment, Lieutenant David Sinclair entered the room, his expression tense but resolute. "Admiral, Commander, I've gone through the data from Zeta Station again. The Empire's communication channels show increased chatter. Troop relocations, they're preparing for something big. It's now or never if we want to catch them off guard." Harker's gaze settled on the young officer, impressed by the resolve in his voice. "Good work, Lieutenant. This mission's success will rely on precision and courage. If you're up for it, Sinclair, I want you to lead the tech team for this operation." Sinclair swallowed, a mixture of pride and anxiety in his eyes. "Yes, sir. I won't let you down." Harker nodded, his voice softening slightly. "I know you won't." The following hours were a blur of strategy, preparations, and briefings. Harker's orders echoed through the comms, rallying squadrons and aligning them with the diversionary fleet. The tension was palpable, every soldier and officer aware that this mission could be the one that turned the tide of the war. The fleet deployed in coordinated waves, with the decoy ships jumping first, designed to draw the Empire's forces into a calculated trap. Finally, the hour came. The main fleet, led by Harker's flagship, the Resolute, advanced toward the Empire's command center, a colossal fortress bristling with defense systems and surrounded by an armada of ships. The decoy fleet had done its job. Many of the Empire's defenses had already shifted toward the diversion. "Commander Grant," Harker's voice came over the calm but filled with intensity. "All ships are in position. You're clear for the assault." "Copy that, Admiral," Grant responded. He turned to his strike team, assembled and ready, their expressions reflecting a grim determination. "This is it, Delta Team. The Empire thinks they're invincible. Let's show them what a united humanity can do." With a nod, the team boarded their dropship, and moments later, they were streaking toward the command center. As they approached, enemy turrets locked onto them, bolts of energy firing in blazing arcs. Delta Team dodged through the barrage, narrowly avoiding annihilation as they raced toward the station's docking bay. The dropship slammed onto the deck, and Delta Team poured out, their weapons at the ready. They encountered immediate resistance. Empire soldiers in sleek black armor, weapons trained on them. The ensuing firefight was brutal, energy blasts flashing through the air as Grant led his team through the chaos. Each step forward came at a price, but they pushed on, determined to reach the heart of the station. "Sinclair, locate the main control room." Grant barked over the noise, reloading his weapon as he covered his teammates' advance. Sinclair scanned his console, his fingers flying over the controls. "Got it. It's up ahead, third door on the left." The team pressed forward, clearing each corridor with ruthless efficiency, and finally breached the control room. Inside, a massive console filled with alien symbols and holographic displays dominated the space. Sinclair set to work immediately, hacking into the Empire's command network, while Grant and the others held off waves of reinforcements pouring in from the halls. The seconds ticked by, each one a lifetime as Sinclair furiously typed, bypassing layers of alien encryption. Finally, his console beeped and he looked up, triumph lighting his face. "I'm in. Their entire command grid is under our control." Grant grinned, wiping sweat from his brow. "Good work, Sinclair. Shut down their comms, disable their targeting systems, and let's get out of here." With a few final keystrokes, Sinclair executed the commands. The Empire's command center was plunged into chaos as their systems went offline, communication channels severed, and weapon controls frozen. Throughout the sector, their ships faltered, uncoordinated, and vulnerable. As Delta Team retreated to the extraction point, Harker's voice came over the comm. "Delta Team, we've breached the Empire's defenses. Their fleets are collapsing. It's working." Grant allowed himself a moment of satisfaction as they boarded the dropship, feeling the weight of victory settling over him. They dealt a crippling blow to the Empire, a blow that would echo throughout the galaxy. For the first time since the war began, humanity had the advantage. As the dropship lifted off and the Resolute hailed their approach, Grant looked back at the distant station, watching as explosions erupted across its surface. They had struck the Empire at its core and survived to tell the tale. But he knew this was only the beginning, a hard-won battle in a much larger war, a war that they were now determined to win.